I started a pharmacy business with a drip, but I let it go because I was not making money. So today I am here to share with you why I failed, what I did wrong, and how you can do better. So if you are thinking of starting a pharmacy business with insufficient funds, you really need to hear this. So a little bit of my story. I registered as a pharmacist in January 2020 and I opened a pharmacy in December 2020, mainly because it was lockdown. I could not get anything to do and I just had this crazy idea that self-employment would help me, and honestly it did. I learned a lot from that, and this is part of what I am sharing with you. So a little bit of a background on that. The capital that I used, I have written that down. These are approximate stuff. I do not have records of that, but I do have. I do remember. So rent was 350,000 because I was renting one room. Rent was 350,000 and I paid rent for 6 months. So that is roughly 2.4. Company registration, the back and forth, getting the TIN certificate, that took roughly 1 million. The license at NDA, 1.2, it was 1.18. The interior, roughly 6.5. Others, that is the signpost and any other stuff that I needed, miscellaneous, they're always there. Roughly 1 million. And the stock, I stocked on credit because I picked stock from a wholesale pharmacy that I was working for my salary was 7 months and they were paying me 1.5. So I got stock of 10.5. So that makes it roughly 23 million, considering that I was capital. I didn't have to pay pharmacists. I licensed it myself. And also for the first 7 months, when I was not being paid by the pharmacy, because I wasn't getting paid during those 7 months, because the only job I had was pharmacy supervision. So the only pharmacy I was supervising that wasn't mine had given me drugs, so they were not paying me for 7 months. And then certainly my business had not started bringing in money, so I could not afford stuff. And I worked day and night every day from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. And I took one day off, not one, roughly 3, and quickly noticed that every day that you close that business, the sales declined the following day, like significantly. So I learned that I had to keep the business running. So later on, when I started getting paid and the sales increased, I was able to hire staff so that this place could not close for any reason. And that meant that I needed to hire 2 people because one person can get sick. The emergencies, naturally people need days off. I mean, they're professionals. When will they wash, for example, get sick? So if you hire one person, you're not giving them that luxury, and it's at the cost of your business because you will close it. And so that is why at least 2 staff are needed. So what I did wrong, or basically where it all went wrong. So a little bit of what to expect is the sales versus the costs. So by the time I let go of my pharmacy business, I was making an average sales of 350,000 Ugandan shillings daily. And of course, I had friends who were doing the same and they would interact. I was doing better than some were doing better than me. I had a colleague I was learning from, and of course, she had opened hers like years back. She had strategies. I kept on learning from her, and up to today, she has made it. She has a chain of pharmacies and medical centers. After starting with capital of like 2.4, basically like me, she had rent and just started putting things together. The systems still stand up to today, so you can do it. I am just here to make sure that you do it right, or rather you learn from me, and also perhaps you put together better strategies, because a pharmacy is more than medicines on the shelves. It is a business, and business needs strategy, not survival. And with the sales and costs of an average pharmacy in Uganda, that is survival. So I want to take you through this survival mode, what it looks like. So with average sales of 350,000 shillings per day, that means there are days when it's slower, but then there are days where you make more money, maybe 500. So for me, by the time I let my business go, the average sales were 350. So let us break down that 350. we start with, so that will make it roughly 10.5 million a month. And I learned from people who were in business how to stock, like how much money do you really put back. And from so many of them, I deduced myself that I needed to stock at least 60% of the sales. And that happened, like that helped. It would keep the business afloat, but I also noticed that sometimes it's insufficient because with pharmacy business, you're not selling one item that you're buying at the same price and selling and buying. You're selling too many things that have very different profit margins. They move differently. So sometimes you may stock that 60% and it's sufficient. Sometimes it is not sufficient, but we take the 60%. So 60% of 10.5 is 6.3 million. That means you have 4.2 left, yeah, from your gross income. And now you have staff. The pharmacists. By the time I sold it, I was now paying a pharmacist. So the pharmacists will take 1.5, a minimum, I think, now. So if you take that off your remaining 4.2, that is 2.7. You have 2 nurses and I was paying my nurses roughly 500,000. So ideally, let us go with that as of today. Someone professional, going to give them 200K. I know people who do that, but I did not do that. Well, I did that in the very beginning, and I quickly increased her salary, and I paid her rent, and I kept on being there for her because I knew the money was insufficient. But so 500,000 for 2 nurses, so that is 1 million. So from your 2.7, you have now 1.7. So for meals, commonly they are given. The nurses are given 5,000 shillings a day to eat. So for 2 of them a month, that makes it 300,000 shillings, leave you with 1.4. You have a cleaner, typically 100,000 a month. So that leaves you with 1.3. You see how this money is going down. You have rent. By the time I sold my pharmacy, I had moved from 1 room to 2 rooms, for aesthetics, to sell better, to increase sales, and it did. Those are some of the strategies one needs to come up with. So I was paying 700,000. So when you take that off, that is, when you take 700 from the 1.3, you now have 600,000. And electricity, I used to pay electricity about 100,000 a month because Sidra, my CD, why are you crying? So, after rent, we think of utilities. So the electricity, I used to pay 100,000 a month if I was to run a signposts throughout the night. The camera. By then I had a camera, and basically working almost up to midnight, even at power. That would go for 100,000 a month. And then the water, detergent, that other stuff, you can make it 50,000 a month. And I also used to buy drinking water and tumblers for my clients, so that is roughly 50. So when you get off all that, you have 400. So imagine a business where you have put over 35 million capital, and at the end of the day you have 400,000. It is insufficient, and most of the time you do not see this money. For example, when you have that emergency and you make a call to send you 500,000 in your mobile money, you already be in negatives, my dear. And it's not all the time that you're going to make this 350 average in sales. Sometimes it will be 280. That means you are losing money. So basically, if you have never looked at it like that, kindly do. That's really what happens. And those costs are kind of an example. You can reduce the rent, but oftentimes when you reduce rent, you're in a place where you can't work because hotels are expensive. Next is why I failed and how you can do better. I'm going to move this together. The very, very first one was that I did not start with enough capital. So what you can do better is start with the capital portion. Like, start with good capital. Start with better strategies, not just surviving like me. I can suggest a minimum of 50 million, but there are people who have strategized with smaller capital, like my friend Grace. Her videos on YouTube. And there are so many of us who have failed, like almost everyone else who has started a pharmacy under similar circumstances has failed. So start with the capital portion. And then secondly, choose a location wisely, because the pharmacy business is not only about foot traffic, it's also about buying power, because They may pass by, but they are not buying. And I see many of those pharmacies also. Some pharmacy in uptown Kampala, people who are on foot there are not going to buy drugs from there. People can potentially buy drugs from there, cruising away with their cars. So there may be foot traffic, but when there is no power, so you need to consider that. And then train your staff well. For this, I have two vivid examples. In Chaliwajala, okay, I always do this, by the way. I go to pharmacies and instead of asking directly what I want, I just test stuff. It's fun because you have not trained your staff. So in Chaliwajala, I moved into this pharmacy, but I wasn't testing. I sincerely needed an osmotic laxative, and I did not want to be specific with the brand because what if it was not there? So I thought I was making it easier for the dispenser by asking them, can I please have an osmotic laxative? And she's like, do we have, I mean, who doesn't have an osmotic laxative? Anyway, she first looked around and then brought me loperamide. And I was like, is loperamide a laxative? Another example is in my neighborhood, I needed tranexamic acid, and the lady told me they did have it, but she gave me an option, which is really good. And I mean, you need to have staff who can easily, they have selling power. You don't have this, but you can use this because, you have the ability to do that. You have the ability to advise and also sell, because again, it is a business. So, but she gave me an option. I needed tranexamic acid, and she was like, but she even knows that one. So, Musa, we don't have tranexamic acid, but I can give you mefenamic. So please train your staff. They are making you lose money because imagine what happens to other people who do not understand drugs. They'll give them wrong things. I went to a pharmacy, needed Bisacodyl, and they gave me Hyoscine. Train your staff. Anyway, then the fourth tip is to track sales and inventory. I failed at that. The moment I got a 9-to-5 job, I lost track. I spent less time there. I didn't track sales and inventory. It really helps to do that daily because you limit theft and you also avoid wastage. Not only on your side, but also on the dispenser side. On your side, because if you're not there and you're just seeing the money on the account, because they'll bank daily. They'll bank that 500, 300, 200, 180, however much they made onto your account. And if you're not on ground, you're not going to track. And if you're not tracking, you're going to misuse the money. When you misuse the money, you will fall. So, strategize. And then, the fifth tip is do not ask for that 500k, mostly if you're not there. That, put some 500 on my phone, we don't take it back. So if you're not going to take it back, which is oftentimes the case, just don't ask for that 500k. You're going to intentionally, you're going to keep eating up your business. So those are the 5 tips I can give you. So I did not fail because I was lazy or uneducated. I failed because I lacked the right business and financial foundation, and later lacked the time. I also made a few of those send me 500 on my phone that I never took back. And later I made a very conscious decision to let go of this business before it was too late. I do have friends who have failed to sell, and they have packed up their pharmacies, packed the shelves, and just went back home because they could no longer sustain them. I do not want you to do that. And the moment I noticed that it was time for me to let go of this pharmacy business without actually making losses, I put it on the market. And it was bought shortly after by a friend whom I gave this talk properly. I told him, some people sell to you and they cash stuff. They do not tell you things, but I took him to the pharmacy, took him through the systems that I had already created. I had inventory management software. I passed on, the apps for the cameras, what I was making in a month, like in the books, the receipts, the everything, the system. So he knew what he was buying, and to him it was good money. But the pharmacy is still there, but it is not working. It is not well, because I think what I just told you is really what is happening. And I can easily tell a struggling pharmacy going through these things. So with that, I did not fail because I was lazy or uneducated. I failed because I lacked the right financial and business foundation. And I also later lacked the time. And on multiple occasions, I asked for that 500k and never took it back. But I do not regret my decision of selling my pharmacy because I just transferred the money I added on more and I bought this home. I bought the place where I stay, bought myself a house. So this channel is no longer about pharmacy business. It's about life, home, faith, hustle, and creativity. So if you're trying to make things work, this space is for you. And with that, I'd like you to subscribe, like, share, comment, so that we can build this together. Thanks for watching. See you in my next one.